I'd like to call this meeting of June 8th, 2022 to order. Start with the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
I'd like to ask for a moment of silence, please, in regard to the recent school shootings across our nation. We would just keep in mind all of those that are directly affected and are suffering by these tragedies, and ask for regard for each other as we get through this. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Noble.
Here.
And appearing remotely, Councilmember Zamitis.
Here.
And Vice Mayor Cummings.
Here.
And Mayor Howell.
Present.
Manager Cavalli. Attorney Mora.
Present.
Okay, first of all, the consent agenda. I will need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
I will second. Motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Before we go on, I've got a couple things I'd like to cover. First of all, during public comment, any member of the audience may come forward to the podium to say their comment or concerns regarding any matter regarding any matter over which the town council has authority over, excluding agenda items. We ask that every speaker state their name and address. Public comments shall only be shared from the podium. Speaking out of turn from your chair or from any other location other than the podium will not be permitted. Cross-talking and private conversations are disruptive and therefore not permitted. All statements made to the town council should be made to the town council as a whole and not directed towards any individual council member. No personal attacks or slanderous remarks shall be permitted. No speaker shall be interrupted, and no debate shall take place by any speaker of the community or town council. Public comment is comment only. If you have a question, please direct that towards the town hall via email or phone call. Those who are speaking in fairness and respect, please adhere to the 3 minutes. It is not procedural for the council to respond to the public comment and council at this time. I'm requesting that you refrain from responding to any comments. Okay, Next thing I'd like to address is, there's been a lot of rumors going around town, as you all well know. And one of the rumors was against, our Public Works, was, that Mr. John back there was leaving our employment. And I'm not really sure why he's leaving our employment, but I'd like to ask him, because after 52 years of being an employer, I've found that when somebody leaves, if you take the time and sit down and discuss with them why they're leaving, that you might be able to correct the situation, an ongoing situation. So, John, could you please tell us why you're leaving? I mean, does that bother you to be put on the spot?
No, I'm gonna die, and I like to talk. You want me to go up front, or?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
If you wish to speak. I guess it's allowed. Hello. Hi, everybody, my name is John. I've been working for the town of Kenneth City for over 4 years now, I think it is, and, I have a lot of family problems at home with my wife. My wife is losing her mom, this is what's coming down to, and, I thought about leaving here to go to a different job, because I was gonna only work a few days a week and spend more time with my wife, but I tried to explain to her, but you know, she's like in that paranoia stage, having a stroke and all that. So I figured if I left here and went to a different job, that it would help her out, but I tried to explain to her, if I leave here and I'm out of town with the trucks that I'm driving, you know, I'm driving the truck again, I'm not gonna be able to just go home. So, to be honest with you, I like to reconsider my resignation.
Sir, I will tell you that I have no jurisdiction over that in any way, shape, or
If
form.
there's any chance, that's all, you know, but
You need-
that's the reason why. It's nothing with you guys up here, or Ken, or Pete, I think is an awesome boss, you know what I mean, so. That's about all I got to say on that matter.
John, talk to them and see what you can work out.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, there's another honor. May I ask you a couple questions? They won't be hard. I just want to thank you for your employment that you've done while you've been here. And also I want to ask you, I've been in your office and I've talked to you a lot. And I've told you about people trying to improve their life, trying to improve their lifestyle, and moving forward in life. Is that not true?
Yes.
And it's to my understanding that the reason that you're leaving our employment is the fact that you have gotten a job with Seminole, and you feel as though that you're going to be able to advance your career a lot further by going there. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
And I just want to publicly thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pete, there's all kinds of rumors going on about you and I, but let me just ask you a quick question. Have I ever came into your office and tried to tell you how to do your job or create a hostile environment for your employment?
Overall, we've had a good relationship.
What was that?
I said overall, we've had a good relationship when you come in. You know, it took about a month, but then we worked through a lot of things and started working together better.
And we agreed when you turned in your resignation not to be cutthroat, catty, or anything, and to work together with whatever needs to be done. Is that not true?
As we have, yes.
And we have done that. Is that not correct?
Mhm.
Thank you, sir. Our police department is running like a well-oiled machine here. They're accredited. They're getting ready to go back for their re-accreditation. And I'd like to tell Mike that the officers that I've talked to, that I've never seen the morale this high in the police department. Everybody's talking about a team effort, Raw, Kenneth City, and I would like to congratulate Mike on the job that he's doing. So, you're going to give a report later on, Mike, so if you have anything that you'd like to throw in on that time, that would be great. All right, now before we do the next thing, I would like to change the agenda a little bit tonight. You have copies of it right there. You see up in the upper right-hand corner, it says Mayor Howell Draft. I feel as though that the the meeting will move a lot smoother if we change the order in which we're going to do stuff. I don't know if I have to read everything that we want to change, or if you have it right there in front of you. And my question to you is, do I have a motion to accept this agenda so that we can go through the process of what we've got to do? That we might be able to expedite this meeting a little bit by doing this pattern versus the one that we have now.
Mayor, for the benefit of all present, it would be best to read in what your proposed alterations are.
Okay, procurement ordinance number 2022-657, the second reading. I want that to be the number one thing. The number two, I would like the management consulting firm, Department of Management Service packet. I believe that's what you're doing, Pete. Is that not correct?
Mhm.
Okay, that would be number two. And then that would be A. And under number 2B, Imagine That Performance has a presentation. And then after that, interim town manager candidate, administrative assistant resumes, accounting and finance specialist, and legal service request for proposal. Okay? That's the order in which I would care to change. I need a second or a first on that, and then I would need a second.
I'll make a motion to accept, Mayor Howe's draft amendment or, agenda. It was one of those words. So make a motion to accept Mayor Howe's draft agenda, the way it's written on our paper here, and use the order that he's come up with.
I will second that motion to adjust the order.
Should we take a vote on this, or I just ask?
You'll need a vote on this. Procedurally, this body governs its own order of business, so as long as should a majority of you agree, the proposed order of operations would be that ordinance number 2022-657 would be the first item on the action agenda. The Department of Management Services packet would be 2A. The Imagine That Performance Proposed Agreement would be 2B. The interview of Mr. Robert Daniels would move from item 1 to item 2C. The accounting and finance specialist would be 2D, and the administrative assistant resumes would be 2D, and the accounting and finance specialist would be 2E, and the legal services request for proposal would follow as item number 3, and that would conclude the action items on the agenda if accepted as proposed. So it's for you folks to discuss. If there's a motion and a second on the floor, if you have any discussion, now would be an appropriate time. For you to discuss it, and then after that, a vote among the members of the council.
Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yes, sir.
Do you?
It's all on here, you're just putting it in a different order.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All, did you say aye, Barbara? Okay, thank you. Okay. Now it's time for public comment. Please remember what I spoke of before. We're not here, you can comment anything you'd like. We're not here to answer your questions, okay? Anything that you'd like to speak about cannot be on tonight's agenda, okay? We will come to that at a later time in the meeting. So right now, in public open forum, do we have anybody who would like to speak on anything that's not on the
And I think you've alluded to this, Mayor, but because we have a lot of people present tonight who may not have attended meetings in the past, just to underscore what the mayor's saying is, this is open forum for items not on the agenda. As agenda items come up, the public will have an opportunity to comment as we go through those items in succession.
Yes, ma'am.
I am new to the meeting.
Could you step up to the microphone, please?
Be sure to fill out a speaker card, please.
My name is Mona Burrows, and I live on 6132 51st Avenue North. My first time to a meeting, I'm sorry I've missed them, but I just want to know, do we go by Robert's rules when we attend a meeting? Because I'm seeing you, thank you for responding the way you are, but I just wanted to bring that up because I missed the Robert's rules and that's all, thank you.
While it is not typically a Q&A from a procedural standpoint, this body has adopted its own rules of procedure, and where those rules of procedure are silent, Robert's rules is, I believe, otherwise adopted. but generally speaking, this body has its own resources.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Jeff Bonas, and thank you all for showing up tonight, because it's a very important meeting, because we have a good chance that we could lose this town. And I just want to say one thing, if we were such a well-oiled machine, why in the world are we losing two of our best people in this town? I understand that you said that you're leaving for better opportunities. I truly don't believe that, but that's my personal opinion, and I think it's the opinion of most of the people in this place. If we were a well-oiled machine, the 5 of you council members would all get together and be on the same page. I never see that happening, and I want to thank you again for showing up, because there's a lot that's going to happen tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Anna, can you hit the timer, please?
I'm on it.
This isn't on the agenda. My name is Cindy Height, 6514 43rd Avenue. I have spoken to Pete, a couple of times this past week, because I plan on having an event in Kenneth City that I have mentioned to you all. And I'm up here today because I want everybody to hold this date available, if possible, because I would like to see hundreds of people. I'm with the Florida Drug, it's gonna be the Florida Drug Epidemic Awareness Walk Across America and Moms Against Drugs. It's gonna be Saturday, August 27th, and the time will be between 4 and 7 p.m. I'm just getting started with this right now. The reason why I'm having it August 27th is because the lady one of the moms is helping me do this event. We're also going to Tampa at Bayshore, and we're gonna do the walkathon there, on August 31st, which is the original, Overdose Awareness Day. But I wanted to have this for my community, our community, okay? For August 27th, which is a Saturday, seeing that she wanted to have hers on, August 31st, and I'm going up there to help her do that also. Like I said, I haven't really gotten anything arranged yet as far as vendors and stuff, but, what I'm planning on having is, vendors that is gonna be available, and I have to email these people, which will be PAR operations. I will be contacting NOPE. I will be contacting the Florida Department of Children and Family Services. And there will be a raffle. I will be contacting the Victory High School, and that's a local school that is for kids that's in recovery right now. Like I said, there will be refreshments, and I know Ken will be there, and I've asked for, law enforcement, if I could have at least one officer, because I'm gonna have banners that this mom has paid $1,200 for, that have all the children on it that moms have sent in their pictures. So I just don't want anything to happen to those graphics. But I just want to bring everybody to this attention, and I'm hoping that everybody will hold on to this date, because this year of September, our son will be gone for 6 years, overdose. And this is very close to my heart. And it's not just for my son, but I'm doing it for all the other kids, because this is gonna stop. We've gotta bring awareness to this community. Because like the chief over here has said, it's rising big. And somebody's got to do something to stand up and be their voice. So I'm praying that it doesn't rain that day, so I can do this. So I just wanted to keep that date available for everybody, and I'm hoping to see everybody there. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Vanderkoy, 5196 60th Way North, Kenneth City. I'm just coming up here so I can say a few things so that there's some awareness in this town. Recently, I was made aware that, some of our law enforcement officers were ordered to help one of our council members move furniture. I do not believe that that is in their purview or what they are assigned to do as law enforcement officers for the town of Kenneth City. If I am incorrect, I'd like somebody to correct me on that. I know you are not going to answer any questions, but I do want this on the record. I also want on the record that I am going to find out what it takes to have a recall election for one, if not more, members of this council. I do not believe you are fit to run this town. The proof is in the pudding. You cannot keep a town manager, you cannot keep the town attorney, you cannot keep the town clerk. We have lost so many employees because of the hostile work environment. You can call it a rumor. It's not a rumor when everyone's quitting. It's a fact. And facts speak for themselves. And that's all I have to say. Have a good day.
Mr. B, could you answer that about the
To be honest, looking at the rules of procedure, I can make a comment at the end after everybody
Okay.
makes a comment.
all right. Go ahead.
Michael Wimmer, 6038 44th Avenue. I'd like to echo some of those comments. I believe that we do have an issue here, and I believe it lies up there. I guess I'm sorry, I do have a question to ask. I don't know if it's appropriate or not, if I get an answer or not. But I got my bill for my new garbage company. By my arithmetic, I come up with 34% increase. Why? What was wrong with the company we had? What were they gonna increase us 50%? That's asking a question, but.
Yes, sir, just to let you know, that same company you're speaking of, Waste Connections, if you were living right outside of the community, literally across the street, they charge $48 a month, which is about 50% more, about 40-some% more than you're paying right now.
Were they gonna charge that to us now?
They came in at, $26 a month, I believe. I don't have the exact, but just about, it was definitely.
Why was it?
And the reason why is, obviously, you see how much gas has went up.
Oh.
You see how difficult it is to find, employees.
Right.
Cities are actually having.
No, I just was curious as to that.
And also, I just have to say the last thing, and also the tipping fees at the county have
Oh,
been
definitely.
substantial.
I've experienced that myself. Just wanted to know, that's all. This seemed a little extravagant.
You're welcome to come into City Hall and I'll go through the 3 bids.
Oh, I believe you. I think you're a good man. I've had some conversations. The other question I do have is, I understand that we no longer have code enforcement fellow working for us anymore.
That's correct.
Who do I go to find out all these questions I have on the ordinance that are not meeting?
Right
To
there.
you?
Yes, sir.
How long are you gonna be here for?
Until June 26th.
June 26th. Oh.
And that's a Sunday, if you needed me to be here on a Sunday,
I
I'll be
know.
here.
And just to echo the concerns, I am concerned also about what's going on now.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Paul Ashley, 6412 44th Avenue. Just a general comment for everybody tonight. There's a lot of business that's gonna go on. Please use your microphones. If we have to pass this microphone over to this table to be used, please, let's do it. There's a lot of people here that wanna hear what's going on. It's very important tonight, so please use the microphones. We paid a lot of money in this town to have this building refurbished and everything, so let's get our money's worth and use the microphone so we can hear tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, this time I'd like to close public comment and move to, the action agenda. Number 1, I believe that will be Randy's job.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item number 1 on the action agenda as revised is ordinance number 2022-657, an ordinance of the town of Kenneth City, Florida, creating Division 1 of Article 7 of Chapter 2 of the Town Code relating to procurement rules to add new provisions necessary to facilitate efficient and legally compliant procurement activities, making related findings, and providing for severability, codification, and an effective date. This has been a second reading of ordinance number 2022-657 by title only. As this is on second reading, council members, we've briefed this and covered this in the past. However, this is aimed at a series of measures. Over the last several months, this council has talked at some length about reevaluating its various contracts and financial commitments and potentially going to the market on those. This is aimed at bringing your code up to the more modern parlance and standards relating to procurement, and also offering you some flexibility that not otherwise afforded by your code as it present, your charter code as it presently exists. However, those flexible measures are also customary in this field. And with that, I am prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions, Barbara?
Megan, anything since you're remote?
No, and I know we've talked about it, but over the phone, the questions I did have, this is just something our town needs to do to catch up in. So, no questions here.
Seeing no questions from the council, Mayor, it would be appropriate to go to public comment on the ordinance.
Do we have any public comment? No public comment? You take a vote then?
Unless there's any other discussion, yes, ma'am.
Motion to accept 2022-657, second reading.
I'll second that motion. 2022-657, second reading.
Can't hear you.
There's been a motion and a second on the floor. Member Noble motioned. Member Cummings seconded. The motion on the floor is to accept the ordinance in its existing form.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Before we go on to the next thing, Megan, I want to say I'm sorry to hear that you're feeling bad. I don't wish ill health on anybody, so get a speedy recovery and get yourself back in here. How about it? Okay?
Thank you, I appreciate that, yeah, and I didn't want to get anyone else sick.
I understand. You did great. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, next one, management consulting firms. Pete, I believe that's your.
Yes, as you see, thank you. Don't remember very well. So, actually, the majority of this agenda is talking about filling vacancies, and that even this ordinance that you just passed, it's still the idea that you want competition, you want to see what's available in the marketplace and different things that you can do. So this agenda item really presents to you the Department of Management Services, what the Department of Management Services has for management consulting firms. They have approximately 60 different firms that have different specialties, everything from Deloitte, which is, one of the world's largest accounting firms, to different, just different engineering, procurement, technology, different specialties. So this is one option for you to look at. There is a significant problem that I'd like to make you all aware of. If you do that, going through the process, you would have to go through an RFP process, which is likely to take you approximately 45 days to complete. So I just wanted to give you both sides to that. In this package, you can see the different firms, their specialties are itemized, as well as the prices that they submitted through competitive bidding through the state. So that being said, I'm just presenting this to you as another option.
Any questions? Okay, then I'd like to move along to 2B, Imagine That Performance. They're going to give us a presentation.
Now you've got to put it
I talk rather loud, so if I talk too loud, tell me to turn it down. Okay, Rob Duncan from Imagine That Performance, Mayor Howell, Councilmember Semitis, wish you a speedy recovery. I stood before you about a month ago now at a workshop and we spoke at length. So what I'd like to do today, instead of regurgitate everything we talked about then, is kind of just talk about the path forward. So after the last meeting that I wasn't at, Town Manager Cavalli reached out to me, said it seemed like the will of the council for you to put together a proposal to take care of some of the challenges that we have going forward. That's what's before you today. I do have the team that would be supporting.
Excuse me. I hate to interrupt, but Keith, I'm sorry, if you're shuffling, I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that, Megan. I mean,
Okay, I get it. I'm just missing everything. Continue, sorry about that.
No, thank you. So we do have the team here. I'm gonna ask each of them to come up just to briefly talk about the various scopes of work they're gonna be working on. So if you looked at the complete agenda, it does include every single thing, if you don't mind going to the next slide. It does include everything that we are offering to the town to serve. With Manager Cavalli leaving, there is very specific tasks that a town manager needs to do. And what was identified by the team is in the 2 months from now until when the budget needs to be approved, one person isn't gonna be enough to get all that work done. So you will see, everyone will introduce themselves, they'll talk a little bit about some of the things that need to be done to prepare for the budget, but as well as some of the immediate needs. So to talk about the immediate needs, I'll ask Lisa Hendrickson to come up here and she'll talk about those and then we'll go to the next one.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Lisa Hendrickson, and I am a resident of Pinellas County, and I bring to the team 20-plus years of local government experience. If Imagine That Performance is engaged through contract, I would be responsible for accounting and code enforcement, which appears to be top priorities for the town moving forward. I would like the opportunity to speak to each of you individually if we are chosen, so that I can hear from you directly what the issues are that the residents are sharing with you, as well as some of the internal accounting challenges that you may have. Hearing your concerns and the challenges that you're faced with will help us bring recommendations to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is JP Murphy. I bring to the team over 12 years of experience serving in the C-suite, 5 previously as a town manager here in Pinellas County. And I've made a very good career off of helping communities take strategic action and find strategic ways in which they're going to spend their limited resources. You all out there have a very difficult job. And that is one of balancing multiple competing priorities with limited resources in which to do them. And a few of the strategies I found have been really helpful. Of course, are looking at our revenue capacities, looking at what ability you have to not only raise money, but do you have the right mix of that? Where do you fit in the rest of the marketplace? And look for opportunities to grow. I found that over time, when you look at different operational things, there may be things you haven't considered previously that can result either in savings or long-term cost deferment, if you will. And what I will help bring to you is a conversation for you to really consider what your mix of revenues look like, where you fit in the marketplace, looking at your CAFR, and bringing some strategic action to your budgeting process. I don't know about you folks, but when I first started in the business, looking at a line item budget, it was really easy to see what we spent on that line item the year prior and what we're going to spend this year. But really tell me how we were spending money, what we were spending money on, how much code enforcement actually costs from a total wraparound conversation. So not only are there hard expenditure there's people expenditures, and there's other costs that go into that. And what I want to be able to provide to you is some conversation that you can engage with your residents on what your spending priorities are because you have those limited resources. So we'll help identify those solutions and help you walk through making some of those decisions to make sure you get a budget out that's on time, that anybody can pick up and understand how is Kenneth City spending our hard-earned tax dollars. So, and As well as, I know there's a couple of other agreements that are sitting out there. I have 12 years of accounting background in government finance. I recently, in the city I served in previously, recently went out for legal counsel, so I know that's on your agenda later in the meeting. We can certainly provide assistance on that, and I have a unique little background in dealing with a lot of information technology and infrastructure as well. So those are some of the items that I bring to the table, and hope to service you as well. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor and Council, thank you for having us here this evening. I also reach out to the audience and say thank you for coming out. This has been surprising to see the amount of engagement, and I think that's beneficial in so many ways. And so I come to you today with over 20 years actually of experience in local government and executive private sector experience, 12 years of that as an elected official. So I know that balancing act that happens when you're trying to make decisions about budget and priorities. So my role will be to listen to you and to make sure we're listening to your constituents and try and create that shared vision so we can accomplish the hard stuff, which is making a budget and then executing it in a way that satisfies not just individuals, but the entire community.
Thank you.
Michelle.
Good evening, Council. It's nice to see you again. I'm Jocelyn Martinez. I have over 12 years of local government management experience. I also teach full-time and as an instructor in the public administration program at University of South Florida. As many of you will recall, I hope fondly, I served as your town clerk last year for several months. If you were to engage in a contract with Imagine That Performance, I would be performing similar work as I did last year, handling all your public notices, serving as your custodian of records, preparing your council agendas and your minutes, and administering any oaths that would be necessary. Thank you. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
And then the underlying challenge, I know everyone's thinking about who becomes the interim manager, and as you can see, the team here has 4 people that are all capable of doing it. In the very short term, nobody's gonna have the capacity while they're doing those functions to also be doing some of the daily and weekly and monthly tasks. So just so everyone understands where this list came from, all these things that we've put on paper in front of you and in the contract, that came from having a dialogue with your current town manager, with Manager Cavalli, and we went through what are the daily tasks, what are the weekly, what are the monthly, and then the other ones that need to get done. And this is what we came up with as far as some daily, weekly, monthly tasks. With just this as a functional scope, this is not 40 hours because all the work is being done over there, but this still is gonna take some time, 10, 15 hours a week, and until we get through the next month or so, I'll hold that title until somebody else can be free enough to take that over. That's what was presented to the council for adoption tonight in the contract for the 5 people here, all to serve at the pleasure of council. And again, the whole idea is to continue to serve the way we put the contract together. If you did not see the agreement, it's basically a task order assignment. So each of these assignments are assignments with a fixed duration that will end. So this town certainly cannot afford 5 full-time executives. That's not what we're recommending. What we are saying is so much work needs to get done in a short period of time. The only way to get there is to have the people here that can get us there. So that's the idea. Within 2 months, all this work should be complete and the town should be transitioning over to a more steady state the way it was in the past. And that's the appropriate time to start looking at what is the path forward with either an interim manager or hiring a full-time manager after that. And with that, that's what we have here to discuss, and if council has any questions, we'll be sure to answer.
Are you going to bring up the performance agreement at this point?
We weren't gonna present it on the line by line. We know it's in the agenda package, so I think this concludes the presentation part. I think council will need to decide whether or not to act on that, and you need public engagement, et cetera, as you go through that process.
Do we have any public comment about what we?
Public comment first.
You want to ask them first? We'll come back to us. Go ahead.
Just state your name and address for the record, sir.
Again, my name is Jeffrey Clemens, 4494 61st Lane North. A month ago, Imagine Act came in and was asked to come in by the mayor. And a month ago, he gave a presentation, which it was a good presentation. But the thing that I have a problem with is I believe we were railroaded by 3 people on the council when they voted to say, we are not gonna hold another emergency meeting so we could put out an agenda so we can look at other organizations besides Imagine That. They stopped that meeting, and then they turned it around and they said, we're gonna wait for 30 days and then our town manager will be gone, so we'll be forced to hire Imagine That. We got railroaded as a community. And if you guys wanna sit here and say to Imagine That, we're gonna hire you, you're making a big mistake. Not saying that the people here aren't good at what they do, but we didn't even have the chance to go out and give bids like we should have gave bids. And that really upsets me and a bunch of people in this town. You guys stopped the meeting because you said you were out of town. They said we're not having the meeting. 2 people wanted the meeting. They asked for the meeting. The mayor said, I'm gonna be out of town. Well, you know what? What do we have a vice mayor for? The vice mayor can run the meeting, can he? Or can't he? That's all I have to say. We were railroaded.
Correct me if I'm wrong, did I hear you say that you would do all of the services and then in 2 months, we would start looking for a manager? I'm not allowed to ask that, I just wanna make sure I understood what you said correctly. That's what I thought. So, I don't understand, again, why we talked about it at the last meeting, you all did, that you said we can do both. We know we need someone to come in and do these things. We know we're not gonna get a manager and a clerk that quickly. So I don't understand why we're not moving forward with the search unless that's gonna be addressed later, but according to that statement, it doesn't sound like it. And the other thing is, I remember at the last, when you did do a presentation, you very clearly said that you wouldn't come in here and none of your employees would want to come in here if you didn't have full council support. Not only do you not have full council support, you have a lot of residents who are upset over the way this was done. And just to remind you.
You have budget growth, you may have high budget, now you're talking about something you need to reduce that budget. Why do you want your company to get into a budget of 10? Why do you trust me not to be thinking tonight?
I'm not asking you to hire me. I did not ask you to hire me. Quite frankly, if you were the bottom of there and went to work you will not offer a service. I am personally not interested. I'll make that very, very clear. If we can have some sort of agreement on that, we should not have.
Thank you.
Ellen Dalgo, 4726 58th Street North. Why exactly do we already have a contract written up, I don't know how many days ago, dated today, for this company to sign, seal, and deliver? And we have talked about no deals.
2.5196 60th Way North. I believe it's time for a little bit of transparency from our council. I look around the audience here and I see a lot of people that probably that weren't here last time, that probably are wondering why things are moving so fast and why you're not communicating with your constituents. You are not dictators. You work for us. We want to know what's going on. Don't shake your head, Vice Mayor, when someone says something, because that person, you work for that person.
Excuse me, do not talk to any council person directly, and don't threaten.
I didn't threaten anyone. I didn't threaten anyone. Shouldn't be shaking your head at your constituents when they're speaking to you. It's disrespectful. I'm just bringing up a fact. You can laugh all you want, but you know for a fact that it's not right to do that. And you too, Mayor. I mean, you're laughing at me now.
I'm not laughing.
Okay. We need to have some transparency in here. These people have the right to know. They voted for you. Now start talking to people with a little bit of respect and treat us like we're educated people and we care about this town, because we do care about this town. I don't have passion because I have nothing better to do. I love Kenneth City, and I don't want to see anyone ruin it.
Anybody else?
Mona Burrows again, 6132 51st Avenue. I just want to say this to the board, the council, everybody here, that if there was a meeting last time, there was a proposal brought up, if it wasn't shared with the rest of the public, with all of us in Kenneth City, with other bids, I don't see how that can be possibly fair to move forward. And again, I know the woman that was here before, she's awesome on her team, but I don't see how that can be fair to anybody that lives here by pushing only one, and they, I'm sure they're great, imagine that, but you should have, and you should allow other bids to come in. And for this, at this time and point in time, you should allow other bids to come in even now, so that other people of Kenneth City, of its residents, can go ahead and look at those bids and see what's involved in them. I wait my time, thank you.
Hello, Anthony Chan, 4255 58th Street North. Let me take a moment to validate myself. I am an employee of the City of St. Pete, specifically Economic and Workforce Development. I am the authority for workforce development for the City of St. Pete. I have over 15 years experience in both private and public sector in staffing and recruiting workforce. I was the branch manager to Clearwater for DECO, the largest staffing firm in the world. He may or may not remember when we spoke back in August. I'm not going to get the details, but I'm here to say that first, imagine that, very impressive staff and very impressive services. Second, 20% of my network is staffing friends, recruiting friends. I can tell you their contract is impressive, but it's on the high side. I'm going to throw out a couple options that may be possible. I don't know all the details, so the city attorney would have to verify. A couple of the options that we have here is direct hire. I don't know if they offer that service of direct hire. Typically, the commission rate's about 20 to 35%, depending upon the particular position. The advantages of a direct hire position is the fact that if things don't work out, you typically will have more or less a return policy. So if your interim manager doesn't work out, well, you know what? They're going to find you another one at no charge. Now, it depends on the company, but this is typical in the industry. Another option I would like to offer that I haven't heard in any of the meetings in the past, I don't know Pete's history, but there's also the possibility of paying him the contract fee before he leaves. He may already have a future. I don't know. But if he does not, why not pay him a consulting fee until he transitions out? That would solve a lot of the issues. Another option, we're talking about procurement. Imagine that's covering things for the next couple of months. Why can't you have an executive search simultaneously? We're in America. This is capitalism. Let's try to get the best rate possible. I don't see that too much. Now, while going through the agreement, I only had a chance to look at, to me, the most important part, because I'm always about money. My degree's in finance. Exhibit B, the managing director is charged $175 an hour. That's $7,000 a week, 40 hours. $364,000 a year.
Time.
Can I finish? Okay, thank you.
Can somebody give him our time?
Can we give our time to him?
Let me look.
Why
not?
Why not?
Excuse me 1 second.
Do it every
research.
Folks,
He's from China, he's not in China, okay?
We don't know where he's from.
Good guess, all right?
So a lot of meat on the bones there. That's fake. Let me just look what the rules say so we can consistently apply them equally to everybody who comes forward. I appreciate your passion tonight. It's not lost on me. I just want to make sure I properly advise my clients.
Thank you, Randy.
Believe it or not, this is not a issue that has come up in this community in some time. In the interest of moving the meeting along, Mayor, I'm not immediately finding, that's not to say the provision doesn't exist. I'm not immediately familiar with it. However, you do have the discretion as the chair, and my only advice would be whatever, if you make any concession, that you do so in an equal fashion going forward, such that if somebody yields their time and you set a maximum, that be the same, regardless of the contents of another speaker's speech.
Go ahead, Lou.
My name is Erica Johnson, I'm 5669 45th Avenue North, and I brought a friend with me to speak. Thank you.
All right, I'll make it brief. Now, that was for the managing director. For the professional facilitator, which is $250 an hour, that's $10,000 a week, or $520,000 a year. But Pete, I apologize, but it's a public record, so I will mention Pete's salary, I believe, is around $90,000. What's that?
95.
I said it correctly. 95,000.
You go, baby.
But if we pay the lowest rate at $175 an hour, that's $364,000 a year. Let me tell you something else about me as City of St. Pete. I manage the South St. Pete Community Redevelopment Area. That's about a 5-mile radius. I manage an $8.3 million budget. Some people might consider me an expert. I wouldn't say I can do Pete's job, but I have an idea of budgets. I have an idea of spending, and I definitely have an idea with workforce. I think if we choose to do this in exclusive, it would be fiscally irresponsible. But that's just my public opinion. Thank you.
Council, on a going forward basis, according to section 5.5.4.2 of your rules of procedure, persons who have been authorized to represent an organization with 5 or more members or a group of 5 or more persons shall be entitled to speak 10 minutes without interruption. So if 5 or more people yield their time to a single individual, they would max out at 10 minutes in your rules of procedure. But then those people would not be able to speak subsequently or give their time to another speaker.
Megan, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Mayor, before we turn to Megan, I just want to be clear, is there, the way that this is typically proceeded, we've asked if there's anybody left for public comment and closed public comment formally, so that it's clear to the public in terms of expectation that this is the speak now or forever hold your peace moment on this issue.
Does anyone have anything else they'd like to say?
Paul Ashley, 6412 44th Avenue North. I have 49 years business experience, which I retired from. Never have I seen an organization get railroaded like Kenneth City is tonight. I believe Mr. Duncan came in here a month and a half ago, presented something, and all I remember out of that presentation is, I spent 25 hours of my time and I'm not getting paid for this. Well, that's part of doing business. That's part of an RFP, that's part of a proposal. You're not expected to get paid for that. And I heard that over and over and over. He is concerned about one thing, our money. Not the council's money, our money. Okay, he's concerned he's not gonna get it. Okay, so I'm urging the council, all of the council, do not select Imagine That. Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything to say? This time I'd like to close public comment. And turn it over to Megan. Do you have anything you'd like to say, Megan?
Sure, thanks, Mayor.
One moment, Megan, I want to get the mic.
Wait a minute, I can't hear you.
Oh, hold on.
What's up on the screen?
Yeah, can you speak again?
Can
Megan?
you,
I'm sorry.
can you open the screen?
That's okay. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. I can't see it, but I can hear that there's quite a few people in the audience. I just want to thank our community for coming out. It's nice. Thank you for taking the time to speak your feelings. I definitely have a few things to say, so I'm just gonna work my way down my list here. As I urged at the last meeting, we really needed to hire an executive search firm this whole time, because even if we would have started at the last meeting, we may only have come up with something that we're looking for now, or something that the company hired could start the search for. Because we never even started looking for a company officially. We were given some options, but we never went forward with it. We have now waited to the point where he has less than 20 days left, Anna's gone in a week, and, you know, honestly, I agree with the residents where even I feel derailed, honestly, because imagine that is here tonight with the contract. When did the council, as a side, one, that we wanted them to come implement, or two, that we wanted them to present the contract? Let alone, I see the packet here, there's over 60 companies that we could have got bids from for management consulting services. So it's not like Imagine That is the only company out there that's doing it. That's why it's in our packet. We had other options, excuse me, sorry, that we could have went out to bid for. And again, because we waited to the last possible moment, that's why now it's an emergency, and that's why now you're gonna vote to hire Imagine That. And, you know, when Anna resigned, he called everybody to try to schedule a meeting. And there's all various kinds of excuses as to why we weren't gonna have one. But there's a significant amount of time, so you're telling me you were sick that whole time, or you were on vacation that whole time, or whatever it may have been. I just feel like the majority of the council here that decline this, like, what were you thinking? What are your intentions here? What is your plan? Okay, we hire Imagine That, and then what? So how long are we gonna wait? Like 2 months, really? Because I believe that it was Mr. Chan that was speaking before that was giving out some numbers, if I heard correctly.
Yes.
We, as a town, cannot afford Imagine That long term. Forget long term, where are we getting those pizza hours salary is budgeted, Chair Audit's salary is budgeted. They're gonna be more expensive than that. We still have to pay the severance. So where are we coming up with this money?
I think she's still there. Megan, are you still on the line and can hear us?
I think they're all frozen.
Well, may I have the microphone? Excuse me, while Mr. Cavalli works to, I don't want to speak and only be speaking to 4/5 of my clients, so I'll stand down. Sorry, folks, we don't have the fancy technical difficulty screen to project at the moment. Mayor, we've been going for an hour and it may take a moment to resolve this. We may wish to just recess for comfort if you folks desire, or we can just hold it up to you.
We just wait a minute.
Serious in my neighborhood here. Yeah, but the shells stayed. I mean, I thought it was two guys and then they were nipping out and they were holding in there and doing somebody up there at the gas station calling. And I was just like, the stench in the middle of the road with my car. And I said, it was two guys, it was two girls. And then we get back in the same car. Right there, right there, the gas station. Is the black. I think so many times it's been here, people turn it in my driveway. Yeah, that swell.
Can you hear us, Megan? Megan, can you hear me? Yes. All right. As soon as Randy gets in his seat, we'll be ready to go again.
According for duty, Mayor.
All right. Go ahead, Megan, you were saying?
Okay, do you have the microphone still on?
Yes.
I'm not quite sure when I cut off, so I'm sorry if I repeat some things, but I'm just gonna go back through my notes. I know I was asking, where are we going to get the money from? And, I think I proceeded to say that I would like a few things, answered, in this discussion here by my fellow council members. I would like to know why no one was interested in having another meeting from the last one until now, especially after we received notice when Anna was putting in her 2 weeks notice. So what were your intentions, what were your plans? Because obviously it's an emergency now, and that's why we're gonna be forced to hire, imagine that. But we could have went out to bid, we could have been looking for other management consulting services this entire time. At the last meeting, again, I highly urge that we started to find an executive search firm. And again, that's not even rushing into hiring a manager, because only right now would we be be deciding with the executive search firm that we would like to go with. And then we could work with Imagine That to decide what we need or what we're looking for in a town manager to start that search and to start that process. Because it seems like everyone forgot last time how long it truly takes. We're not just gonna put an online application out and boom, next week, next month, we're gonna have a new town manager. It won't work that way. This is gonna take time. And Imagine That is gonna cost money. Lots of it. As Mr. Chan was explaining, he was just giving some numbers for 40 hours a week for a year. I would hope that your intentions are not to keep a firm for that long. Also, this is directed towards Mr. Duncan. I did hear that recording, but I was also at that meeting myself, so I heard you say that you would not offer your services if not everyone was on board. So I'm curious, is that still true, or do you still plan on going through with your contract here this evening? Because it is evident from our residents that they are not interested in having our company serve this town. And I'll be honest, a lot of this has been done behind closed doors. This is very sketchy. Even I feel railroaded, and the residents feel railroaded. I mean, so do I. We were not even asked, one, do we want them here? We were never asked, do we want to look at other companies? All of a sudden, boom, they're here with a contract. I'm not a fan of it at all, and I think it's real shady. So I would like some answers from council. How do you expect to pay for this? If we were to hire Imagine That, when do you plan on starting the search for a new town manager? And then I would like Mr. Duncan to answer my question as well.
As far as the special meeting goes, Pete, I'm sure you remember our conversation when you called me about this. And I said, what about a special meeting? You said there has been no request for a special meeting.
No.
That's what you told me. I don't know, I was he and I on the phone having a conversation. I know what the man told me.
No, I'm sorry, sir, just not to disagree with you, but there was 2 times that I called. There was once when I had called you I was calling for a special meeting with you, and then there was a second time that we were called when I believe it was Barbara Roberts had asked for a special meeting.
That one, yes, but
yeah.
As far as what Megan was talking about when Anna quit and everything, you told me that there was no meeting for a special request. There was no request for a special meeting.
If I'm not mistaken, that was when Barbara Roberts had asked for the...
No.
Okay.
When she turned in her notice.
I'd have to check my notes, to be honest with you, but I really did.
Well,
again, it was 2 times there was a call.
It is the same time. It is the same time, Mayor, because even I asked for the special meeting. Barbara might have been first, but I echoed that to Manager Cavalli. I said, oh, I'm glad you brought that up because we definitely need a meeting. And he said he would reach out to the 3 other council members and get back to me. And then I texted him the next day and he said, you had no interest in having a meeting.
You know, we're going to get into a he said, she said, and it's just not going to work. I can just tell you, I can just tell you what I was told, and that's it. If you don't believe me, that's okay. I can't change anything. I really can't. So I'm not even going to. Okay? All right, Carl, you have something you want to say?
Yes, I do. So why, when the meeting was suggested to you, you were back in town, did all 3 of you refuse to have a meeting and no one was interested in having it, and that was sent to you because I received a note back saying that all 3 of you refused to have a meeting?
That was before I left.
No, that was that was to have the meeting when you returned.
Oh, well, I wasn't asked about the special meeting because I was
We had a whole month in between the last meeting and this meeting, and don't interrupt me again, please. You can tell when I'm done. And no one wanted to have a meeting. Everyone refused the meeting. We went a whole month and left the town in limbo, and this is where we are now. And I don't feel, as Megan said, that we need to hire Imagine That. I don't feel it's that big of an emergency. We could have another special meeting next week, have Mr. Chin offer us what he can provide for us. At least we have something to compare it with. Because Rob did say in one of the other meetings that he did not want to look for a town manager now all of a sudden he is going to be the interim town manager, which I'm not sure what qualifies him for that, but I'm sure he'll let us know. He was not interested in working with our town if everyone didn't want him. We've already concluded that everyone doesn't want him. I added up the dollars of just on his paperwork to have 20 hours of each of the 5 people. We are going to be spending $600 to $800 an hour. That's not even a day, that's an hour to have all 5 of those people when you start adding up their $100 or $200 an hour that they have provided. I'm not quite sure where that money is coming from either. I'm not sure who asked him to write a contract and date it for the day, making like he was gonna start working for us today. There was stuff done behind closed doors. You know it, he knows it, and everybody else knows it, that was done in this building and out of this building, that was talked about, that should have never been discussed, that there are sunshine laws, and every one of you broke them. And you know what, it really doesn't matter who you hire, as long as this council does not understand we are governed by a town manager, not the council. And when the council realizes that they are not running the show, the town manager makes the decisions, brings it to the council for a council vote, maybe we'll be able to keep someone here. But until then, we're gonna continue to lose people every time we hire someone. I have been on the council, this is going into 8 years now. I have never, ever been on a council that worked like this one did, where we have lost all of these people. Not once, but twice, 2 times in a row. And we're gonna keep doing that as long as we keep moving the way that we're moving. I am.
Thank you for your comments.
So in option 1 that Mr. Cavalli presented, he did a nice job in outlining all of the reasons why option 1, and it's been discussed on the last meeting, you know, a number of reasons why option 1 would take an extensive amount of time and why it probably wouldn't be the most suited thing for us to do. So, I mean, thank you for your extra work. You did a nice job in outlining why that won't work. So, Mr. Cavalli did bring option 1. We're discussing option 2 right now. And we discussed previously that we needed a full-service contractor. And that's, you know, what Mr. Duncan can provide. So in doing the math, currently, we spend $30,000 a month on our town hall staff. And so, as Mr. Duncan said, we have 4 tasks, and we heard from the 4 folks that were going to do each of the tasks. So if you had code enforcement, finance, and if you read the contract, that will cost the town approximately $10,000. That is that is one task. The next task was the revenue and contracts, doing an analysis. And that will cost the town approximately $30,000. And so, and then doing the budget in the contract with the hours in there, that will cost the town approximately $37,500. And then the presentation, to have the workshops and presentation, I used approximately 30 hours for that, and that would cost us about $7,500. What that comes up to is approximately $85,000. And again, we're paying currently $30,000 a month. So that is, 3 months, it's less than that. Currently, our town manager, weekly, makes $2,611 approximately. And what was written in the contract, we would be paying an interim town manager per week approximately $2,500, which is less than we currently pay. We would also be paying a town clerk, our current town clerk makes approximately $1,426 a week. And what's written in the contract, we would be paying an interim town clerk approximately $1,350, which that is less. And these are the hours written in the contract. And so what it comes up to is we're gonna get 4 tasks badly needed, accomplished, for approximately $85,000. And again, we're currently paying $30,000 a month. You can't forget about that. So it's not like we're just, taking, oh my goodness, we have expenses now. We have expenses with our current employees. It's nice everyone has their calculators out. But, so it's really, it comes down to, we need to have these tasks done. We have had Imagine That in here previously. And so they already know the town. They know how things run. If we went to option 1, which is the option that Mr. Cavalli brought us, we would have to go out and define everything we needed done. And that's gonna take a while. We couldn't even do that to get people hired for FTEs. So that would take quite a while. You need the professionals to come in and get that information done. And so, I just, I think it's the right thing to do for the town. And ultimately, it's really not gonna cost us that much money. And if you compare apples to apples, what the town manager is doing. We're gonna pay less for a town manager weekly. We're gonna pay less for a town clerk weekly. And people take their salaries, you have to remember that your salary is one part of your pay. You have benefits, which is the additional part of your pay, which is actually 40% of their actual salary. So when you're going and looking at how much we're actually paying, you have to take their salaries plus the 40%, and that's what we're truly paying out as a town for our full-time employees. So, and again, I will address my personal, why I didn't want to have a meeting, is because I was called, would you like to have a meeting? Our town clerk quit. What's the agenda? What are we gonna do? Are we just gonna have a meeting to have a meeting? If I've ever called a meeting through my whole professional career, I call a meeting. I have an agenda. These are the items we're gonna talk about. Is that something we want to do? Not just, shall we have a meeting?
I didn't ask for a meeting because I'm quit.
That is when I was asked, or that is when I was asked if I wanted to have a meeting at that point, and that was it. So, I don't want to, I think I've addressed all the questions, and I think I've addressed why I feel that, to get this town turned around, we would have, we're really not paying that much more than we're currently paying. And I do want to take an opportunity and thank the mayor for his leadership to finally bring something else into the town that is not the, oh my goodness, somebody quit, let's just hire somebody else. Because we have not defined anything that we need to do. And I have said that from the get-go. And I want to correct something that Councilmember Zamitis said. Mr. Cavalli quit. We do not pay severance to somebody to quit. She said that you paid a severance. We were not. That is how rumors get started. When people project misinformation, especially when there's somebody with authority, when they're talking about something that is not correct, that is basically a rumor spreading, and that's how misinformation gets out there, and it's not a good thing to do. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mary.
I just have a question for Councilmember Noble myself. I've been looking through the contract numerous times. Where are you getting the information about their approximately how long it's going to take them to complete each task? Where did you come up with that at? Or where did you find that at?
On the contract, it has the task hours for each one, in the contract. Each one gives you an approximate hours it's gonna take to finish each one of these tasks. And it also tells you the hours that the town manager will work, in addition to the hours that the town clerk will work. Is that 40 hours?
Can you tell me what page of the packet that's on? Because again, I don't know why.
It's, council members Midas, within each of the individual exhibits or agenda. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I see where it's included. Thank you.
Would you like to say something? Sure, it's okay.
I never wanted Randy, or I never wanted, to quit, I never wanted Anna to leave.
You better talk up.
So, it was by their choice, whatever the reason was, they had their own reasons for leaving. We were put in a situation, we could have, the reason for the special meeting, even if we had a special meeting, sometimes you have to relook at the whole picture, and, I got a call to hire administrative assistants. Well, if you don't have a town manager and you don't have a clerk, what is an administrative assistant gonna do? So you need somebody at the leadership role to build a team, and then put that team together and give some sort of direction. I think that there's a lot of scope in, things that can possibly be changed, can be corrected, can be looked at. And I think, taking a firm and looking at those issues and putting us all in the right direction is a positive thing for everybody, so. That's all I can say.
I want to address the fact about this contract that everybody's talking about imagine that showing up with their contract. I found it out when you guys found out. I didn't know anything about a contract beforehand. I never asked.
Well, that's why we were asking.
Yeah, I never asked Mr. Duncan to. Mr. Duncan, did I ever ask you to make the contract and bring it?
No, as I stated before, at the conclusion of the last meeting, Manager Cavalli and I had a conversation. I was not here. He said it sounded like the will of council would be to consider an option going forward, and that was the direction I took to put something together for the town. That's what led to the proposal, the contract, as well as the presentation tonight.
So nobody on the council had anything to do with that with you?
No, and to be quite honest, nobody negotiated the contract either. So typically, again, I understand some frustration from the community and from the council. I work with cities and counties all over the place. My staff, I've worked with them in their previous places, and they've worked in other places as well. Typically what will happen is council will get together and say, hey, here's what we want to do. Let's appoint someone to kind of work with somebody and start with the negotiation. That did not happen here. That also did not happen here last year. So I do understand the frustration, and right now, this is only put forth as a bridge. Right now, there's challenges without solutions. So a bridge to get to the point where this town can now have, here's what the definition of a town manager and what we want to do going forward, our expectations. That's where we really want to go, because what I've seen here is the expectation of the town manager seems to change every single meeting because it's not clearly defined for everybody. And I'm not blaming anybody for that. That's just where this town is. It is a town that's relatively new to the council manager form of government, could have something to do with it. So I do understand the challenges and the frustration. Any manager coming in would want council to be unified in, okay, we've had challenges, but we're willing to get behind a new path. So Manager Cavalli said that, hey, I'd stay if everyone was behind me. Everybody coming through the door is going to want that, and if this council can't find a way to get there, you're gonna be hard pressed to find a manager willing to take a job on a 3-2 vote. So that's kind of where this council is standing right now.
Is there anything else that you'd like to address that you heard from anybody else? I'm saying that you'd like to straighten out or?
I do think Councilwoman Noble did a really good job at least addressing some misinformation. You know, when you look at the hourly rates, certain rates are high, like a professional facilitator, because that's something that only happens for 2 hours, for 3 hours. But if anyone is actually trying to facilitate this type of session, which what it would be, that's a high stress job. That's a short term, a few hours, and it was nowhere near 30 hours. Our expectation was professional facilitation would be about 10 hours. But somebody really needs to be prepped for that, and you facilitate for 4 hours and it pretty much takes out a day or 2 days for you. So, and the managing director fee isn't contemplated in here anywhere. That's just there in case there's something going forward that could be done by a senior consultant. You say, we don't want the consultant, we want you instead. Okay, you can get me instead of somebody else, but you have to pay more because there's other obligations I have. So there's fees in there, you know, rates, and the rates are just to help understand going forward, if there's more services, what those rates would be. Our contract contemplates a very limited scope of work that should be done in 2 or 3 months. That's all the contract contemplates. This board will have to say, we want more, here's what we want, but at least you know what the pricing is. Your staff did a good job showing you what's in DPMS, and I looked at the rates in there, and most of the rates are higher than ours. So the only ones that are less aren't providing executive management consulting. So I understand if there was an RFP, we would respond to an RFP, but that's not what we do, and that's not what the city has put forward.
Okay. Don't go away.
I'm trying.
I know you're trying. I'm gonna let you get away. As far as you doing this job, how long do you think it's going to take to do this job that we're asking you to do?
So there is a lot of work to be done in Kenneth City, and as Manager Cavalli and I made a list, everything that's on the list wasn't in this agreement, because this agreement was expected to be 2 to 3 months worth of work, maybe 4 months, depending on. There's the reason why it's not, hey, this is gonna be done in 2 months is we don't work here. We don't have all the information, and an RFP wasn't put out to say exactly what it is we're gonna do. So we had to guess, and we expect to be done in 3 months, give or take. We expect it to be within those hours, and as long as council is available to us, we will try to get to that level, and we'll continue to report back.
So where will we be in 3 to 4 months?
Well, the first question that's most important is where will we be in 1 month? So if this is adopted in our agreement, it says we will provide regular reports on how often they will be, and they will be detailed reports. So you will see, because everything is hourly, there's no salary here. There's no 40 hours a week here. Every single task will be lined. Here's what the task is, here's how much time it took, and here's the results. So we'll be back here in 1 month with all the tasks that were done, how much it cost for all those tasks, and you'll have real reports on everything that's happening. What we've heard every time we've been here, and this goes back to last year, is transparency. And we want to see transparent, and we want to see options. And right now, it's a frustration because we don't have options. We have somebody on the team that will be purely focused on providing the options. So, and multiple people. So when we look at code enforcement, for example, you're not going to be presented, here is your code enforcement solution, we're the management team, you need to trust us, let's go with that. No, we need to hear from every single council person what your expectations are for code enforcement. Then the team will go and find options to achieve your requests, and then we will provide the options. Here's option A, here's option B, here's option C, and our professional recommendation on which option we think you should choose. It will still be this body's duty to choose. And what will happen is everybody here will at least see all the information on what the options are, what our recommendation is, and you will still be empowered to make the choice that best suits your community. And that's what's gonna happen for every single thing that needs to be done right now as well as what we contemplate in the budget, because you have a lot of decisions to make on the budget going forward. It hasn't come up here yet, but the budget last year was a significant deficit, and we can't keep doing that as a community. That's not something that the community can keep doing. So one of the goals will be to overcome that and come up with ways to solve that challenge. You have other contracts coming up, like the building department, which is kind of good, because right now, you're not getting as much revenue in permitting as you're spending in running that department. That's something that the team will certainly look to address in the next few months.
One more question and then I'm done. You come back next month and we as a council don't like what you're saying. We just think you're just screwing this thing up from one side to the other. What are our options at that point?
We're no different than any other manager here. We serve at the pleasure of council. We can be removed at any point in time. So the
Any
contract.
penalties?
No penalties.
No penalties, no nothing, just hasta la vista.
No penalties. There is nothing here that for any type of, there's no base fee. So it's, not like no retainage, nothing like that. You're just paying for the time work and for the product that's.
Okay, so if you're not delivering, you go out the door.
That's correct.
Well, I think one of the key things too is when you said relocated the scope, like you said, you're hourly based, right? So if you do this job a couple hours, or you can do this job.
Speaking to the mic.
Can't hear you.
We need to reevaluate some of the scope and the timeframes and a direction to where it may save us money, looking at all those different aspects.
Sure, and to be fair, what I'm hearing is you're talking about staff. So right now in town hall, you have 4 approved staff positions, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's currently 4 approved positions. That preceded your current town manager. It preceded when we were here helping out last year, your previous interim town manager. That was back to when Mr. Campbell was your town manager. So do you need 4 people in town hall? I can't say yes or no. That's something that should be evaluated during this process. So the whole idea is who's doing what. I know there's a lot of questions here on the town clerk duties and town clerk doing accounting functions or bookkeeping functions.
Software, bookkeeping.
Right, so
technology.
That will be something that's looked at. Is there more efficient ways to spend Kenneth City resources? Because it's resources that we're talking about. It's their taxpayer dollars that we're talking about, and there needs to be an efficient way to do that. And that's what this team is here for. They've done that in previous communities. That's why they're here, to find an efficient way to go forward. This is a short term. We intend to transition, to change management, to get from where we are now, which doesn't feel as comfortable as we would like it to be, okay, to a place where somebody else can come in and be a town manager with a different plan and not have to do the change management. So change management is one set of leadership skills, and then maintaining going forward is a different step. So we're in here to be change management, for a short period of time, and then when the town is ready, I'll facilitate the process. If I can, one last thing, we do not and have not in the past done executive search. When we were here last time, the recommendation was to look at executive search and to look at a transition strategy of change management. I did recommend both. I stand by that recommendation. The timing of when you do the search, I think, is worth discussing now with every single position vacant. You may want to wait before you start the search, but it is something that the town will need to do at some point in time when it's ready. And that probably will not be us.
So your job is to get us independently operating once again. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
You're not gonna be here for a year.
No, 2 years.
Thank you.
I have a question before you sit down. You talked about the deficit of the budget. Your company, if I remember correctly, last year was the one that did our budget. So if we had a deficit, we can blame your company for that. So why would we want you to do our budget again?
I would disagree. Last year,
You did our budget.
Last year, your interim manager presented a proposed budget to this council. This council is the one that decided what was in the budget and approved the budget. That is how this form of government works. So yes, we had people that took the information that was here, worked with your staff, and put together a proposed budget. This council is what adopted it. What we're doing different this year, because last year there were no resources to do the type of analysis we're discussing now. We recognize this council can't do that again. If nobody's here to do the work to find opportunities for savings that you look for, they're not gonna be found. And right now, I don't see how that is being worked on by your current staff. I agree with you that there needs to be work done to find efficiencies and savings. I agree with both what you and Councilwoman Zamias was saying last year. I also realized you didn't have any staff that was gonna find those savings. So just saying we're not gonna put something in the budget doesn't make savings happen. We have to find real solutions, and the only way to find real solutions is to invest in those solutions. That's what we're proposing to the town, to invest in the solutions. So, you know, not voting for moving forward is basically saying I'm okay with the status quo, and I can't see how status quo is okay for anybody on council.
Thank you.
If I could ask one more question, and I don't know if Bonnie can answer it, if I'm allowed to ask it or what. But you said we were comparing apples to apples at 85,000. But 85,000 apples to apples, when you were comparing their salaries, they work 40 hours. Nothing on his proposal lists any of them at working 40 hours, so we're not really comparing apples to apples if they're all working 40 hours and his group is working 20 or 10.
Well, that's the whole point. We need to relook at the whole scope and see if we need that many hours
But
in all
she
those
said we're
positions.
saving money. We're not saving money if we're spending $85,000 for 20
But if we're
hours
spending the
when we're
same,
spending money for 40 hours.
Wash to figure out what direction we need to go.
But we're not saving
Thing
money.
is, if we have someone, staff, and I'm gonna use Anna as an example, she can't get mad and leave or anything. If she's working 40 hours, and we're paying her X amount of dollars to work 40 hours, and we have a consulting company come in and say, you don't need 40 hours worth of work to do that job. If you do it this way, this way, this way, it's only going to require 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week. You know, and that's going to come directly off of our budget. And I believe that's the kind of savings that we're going to look for versus if we have a budget of, and I'm just going to say signs, say we have a budget of $240,000 for budget in signs, and we say, well, on the budget, we're going to take off $40,000 off the budget. That's not $40,000 spent or saved. That's just $40,000 that we're agreeing not to spend, you know?
Right, but we're not, you're trying to make the audience think that we're
I'm not trying to make anything, I'm just
making,
trying to.
comparing apples to apples.
I'm not comparing apples to apples.
Bonnie
I'm trying to, well, I'm not talking to Bonnie, I'm talking to you. What we're trying to do is find where we can save money. And if it's saving money on the, general manager, town manager, saying, well, he can work 30 hours and do the same job, you know, if everything is defined and we save that money. That's what I'm looking for, okay? I'm not discussing your apples to apples or whatever, okay? I'm just telling you, we've got to find some ways. There's people out there that say, keep Pete, our town manager, or, you know, save our town from a mayor and our 2 council members. I want to tell you something. I've had a lot of sleepless nights trying to figure out what's the best to do, you know? And there's argumentatively people in here who want to say, do it this way. Well, perhaps I, myself, maybe these 2, maybe you, maybe Megan decide, well, maybe we need to go this way instead. That's what we were elected to do, is to make those hard decisions, okay?
No, you weren't.
And I will make the decisions whether people like it or not. If I think that is the best way for this town to go in. And I told you before, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I just like to surround myself with the sharp knives, okay? And that's the way this whole deal is. Everybody's got ideas, but now you're talking about a company who's a professional. They do this for a living. It's excessively important to imagine that, to be successful in helping us do this. Because how does that make them look if they come in here and we say, Mr. Duncan, you're screwing us from one end to the other, you're out of here. What does that do for his business? You know, it
Well,
destroys
it
it.
shouldn't do a lot for his business when he stood up there and lied either and said he didn't get an interim manager, he wouldn't work with the council if he didn't have all 5 people on board. So that shouldn't do a whole lot for his business either.
Things change, okay? Things change.
Well, money makes people change, doesn't it?
Well, money's a
And he's
temporary.
being paid now.
I can sit up here all night and I'm not gonna change your mind about anything.
That's correct.
You know, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stop, draw a line, and figure out which direction we need to go. And we have someone who would like to say something. Step on up there.
That's your principal.
Is it open?
It's not open mic.
Not yet.
She's a member of the company, she's not a.
She's not a resident, so she gets priority, Randy?
Yes.
So I work for NWIT.
Mike's not on.
That's good.
Is that good? So I work for and with Imagine That Performance. I hear you, Councilwoman. I was a councilwoman for 12 years. This is a very difficult decision because you've dug your heels in. There are at least 2 that I know that have said, this is how I'm voting, I'm not changing my mind. And we accept that. I mean, I think we're talking back here and we're like, okay, because the words that are coming from your mouth are showing that it's a very polarizing issue. It's difficult. And that doesn't serve anyone. It really doesn't. And whether it's because one side wants something and they're not gonna give up or the other. This is what the hard stuff is. I mean, it really is. It's easy to get elected. It's hard to do the freaking job. I mean, we wanna speak directly here. It's difficult. And by the way, difficult for us too, because we mostly work with city managers. We know Pete. You know some of the people that are on our team. We're not villains. It's public service. And we really do try our best. And the gentleman that works in public service, I'm sure understands too. We are here to serve the people and we try and do it cheaper than what you would do if you had to hire FTEs. And then we get out. That's our goal, because we have other contracts. But if you take a look at our mission statements, we are here to try to collaborate. We're trying to move communities forward. I don't like the national conversation coming to the local community. I really don't. Don't let it happen here. It's a very small town. Figure out a way to say, I don't like it. Just go on it. Figure out.
Hello.
Figure out a way to say, I don't like it. I don't like to have to vote for this. Here's why I don't like to have to vote for it. But for the benefit of your organization, because you have an entire police department, and you have an entire fire department that are watching. And I'm truly, as somebody who has done this for 12 years, and then was a city manager as well, if you don't show your employees that they matter, and that this organization matters, don't expect anybody to want to stay. I mean, I'm being direct with you because we are on the same page. I'm from a firefighter family. I was fire commissioner.
Okay.
Respect. Their microphone is on. Hello?
Just talk
Hello?
loud.
I was a fire commissioner as well. So hard decisions have to be made no matter what board you sit on. And that, I mean, really, this is what my role is. So for somebody to come up and decide that they're going to say to the public in general, because they did not either understand the contract or were unwilling to look at the contract, and say that I'm going to make $300,000 this year facilitating something, I'm probably gonna be with you 4 hours max. If you return my phone calls and my Zoom calls, we might spend an hour together at max. So I can hear from each one of you, what your goals are, and I can figure out a way to try to bring it together. If you can't work interdependently, not independently, interdependently like this, and model it for your community and your fire department and your police department, I don't know how you expect them to do it for you too. This is what leadership is. You're in a position to do it. Thank you for reading the contract and understanding the math. I really appreciate somebody who goes that deep into it. And thank you for asking the hard questions. I think as, from a public servant standpoint, I would be the one asking the hard questions too. But I apologize if this offends you in any way. Let's be quite honest, Councilwoman, when you start to call somebody that I know that has integrity, and somebody you know, a female who was here working in your organization, hard for you, is willing to come back because we wanted to help close a gap for you. Liars, that's not acceptable.
I didn't call him a liar. I said he lied when he said that. There's a difference between saying he lied when he said what he said and calling him a liar.
I accept it.
I did not call him a liar.
Okay.
All right, that's
what I
immaterial,
want
let's go
And what
on.
I want you to know is, we stand by the fact that if 5 of you do not go for it, it's okay with us. And quite frankly, I came here tonight thinking another management company, because there were other management companies on the agenda, would be here presenting. So we came to present, that's all. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Mayor, before you proceed to any motions or votes, it's been made clear that the proposal that was brought to you this evening was brought to you without negotiation, based on manager feedback. I would clarify, to the extent it was stated this was not at the request of the council. I've spoken with some of you, and I've said in the intervening 4 weeks, personally, I've worked on a Plan B without a clear indication of what Plan A is. We've had some impressions, and one of those impressions was that this body wished to. One of those impressions was this body wished to see a proposal from Imagine That. Your manager, reading the room, if you will, worked, and I say worked, asked for them to submit a proposal for consideration based on the feedback of the council. Similarly, at the conclusion of the last meeting, Councilmember Noble asked me to recruit see if there were potential candidates, and in that spirit, we've done that. I spoke with 4 of the 5 of you individually earlier this week in advance of the meeting. We didn't discuss this agreement, and I didn't discuss it with any of you. There were no questions asked about it. And so with that said, my advice to you would be, as you move forward, with any, should the majority of the body desire to move forward with this agreement, that you move forward by moving to approve for the manager and the town attorney to finalize the terms of this agreement. For example, it contemplates starting today. I think there's some edits we'd like to make that might make it start as soon as Monday, but to have an opportunity to review that. I do want to sensitize you to a few things in the agreement. One of the questions was on what terms can we terminate. You would, pursuant to Section 7 of the agreement, under termination, you can terminate at any time. There's no 30 days notice or anything like that. It terminates immediately. What would be required is that any and all amounts due to the company for providing services would be paid within 14 calendar days after the agreement's termination date, and the company will be reimbursed for any agreed upon non-cancelable expenses that they incurred in connection with the services. That's customary in the law. It's just if I've already put out money in reliance on the agreement we did have, that I'd be reimbursed for them. But I want to make sure that it's my job to advise you on legal agreements, and so I'm trying to fulfill my duty in that regard. Another term, while it is terminable immediately, and the general spirit of this agreement is that it will be completed within a few months' time, the contemplated term absent a termination is 3 years. It'll automatically terminate at 3 years, absent some based on its present terms, absent termination sooner. And of course, as stated, you can terminate at any time. So I just wish to make that clear to you based on the terms of the agreement. It otherwise comports with the requirements of the law in terms of public records notices to party. There's indemnification, maintenance of town records. This is the product, in large part, of various drafts of agreements that we went through and worked to refine over the course of the last year. Some language that there are some provisions I would like to revisit with Mr. Duncan. I did not speak with Mr. Duncan about this agreement until approximately 4:45 this afternoon, just to say, hey, are you guys, he had called me, and I missed that call. I called him back to say, yes, I see that this is on the agreement. I've not been asked by anybody to opine on it. Go forth and do it, and I let him know some of the same things that I'm noting for you. Another one of those being that this does allow for basically to be a piggybacked contract. I might change some of the nomenclature, but the town encourages and agrees the company can extend similar pricing based on this. The one primary concern I have as it's structured, and this may be something that we work out, is the contemplated arrangement is in a way that this agreement is distinct from last year's agreement, is that the contemplated interim town manager would be Mr. Duncan. Mr. Duncan is also the principal of the agreement, of the company with which you're contracting. There's a potential there for Chapter 112 concerns in compliance with Florida statutes and provisions in there with either conflicting employment arrangements or doing business with one's agency. I'm not saying it is a per se violation by its text. I have concerns about the checks and balances. Last year there was a distinction in that there were some other, though few, employees on site, and the role that I assumed, the fact that you had an independent accountant at the time in the form of Tess and Associates. So there were some checks there. At present, just so it's perfectly clear, by the end of the month, your current manager's term will have expired. Your clerk's last day is next Friday. Your front desk person, Tori, her last day was on Friday. Though there was some potential vacillation on the issue, possibly down one public works employee, I'm not clear on that. But long story short, at the end of the month, your only employees who are not police officers will be Erica and Tori, the part-time clerk in the police department, and your public works employees, and of which there are 2, possibly 3, and that's it. So that's your staff, and so that leaves, they are fulfilling the essential functions. The ordinance we passed. The other thing I wish to make clear: the ordinance we passed earlier this evening that takes effect immediately had one of the provisions within it, and I spoke to this, was with the flexibility in section 2-409 of the code. For waivers may be authorized for any purchase where emergency conditions or urgent demands for commodities or services render competitive source selection policies an obstacle to the timely fulfillment of the town's ordinary functions and duties, which is how we're able to proceed in this sort of unique solicitation. It's not even a solicitation posture. That's the other part of this. This was not an RFP. This was not an invitation to bids. This was not a request for quotes. This was a actor in the marketplace hearing that a community had a need and volunteering a proposal for your consideration. And that's part of the why wasn't this negotiated further. So it's important to note that sort of the how we got here. So my request to you, if you are inclined to move forward with this, is that you move in a way that authorizes the manager and town attorney to proceed with finalizing, negotiating and finalizing an agreement for execution that substantially comports with these terms. So I'm not proposing an overhaul of this, but there are things that had we been involved in a negotiation and I had no direction from my client to negotiate, some things that we would work through, and some things in the past that Mr. Duncan and I have collaborated on when we had that direction. So I wanted to address those concerns in Chapter 112 and some of the other terms to make sure you are aware of the operation of the agreement. The one other term for the benefit of members of MIDAS, though it sounds like that was addressed in your inquiry earlier, as you go through the individual addenda, while it provides a scope of services, sometimes usually on the second page of each addenda, there's a section where it's specifically under financial matters, it provides an estimate of hours and the rate for the hours, and then it also provides a term as to how soon they intend to accomplish each task. The one other point of context here that I think is important to note, last year, though certainly through different means, you recruited a town manager. We began that process in mid-April of 2021. We completed it on August 11th. So that took roughly 4 months. So while there may be functions in this agreement that will be fulfilled, I'm not suggesting it will take the exact same amount of time, but recruiting a manager will take time whenever you get to that. And so there will likely be some function fulfillment beyond a 2 to 3 month window, just because at this point you've not even agreed on what a recruitment process might look like. And so it's important to know that as you consider this process. And the one final note I had relative to all this, and separately with no clear process on recruiting the clerk, which admittedly took even longer last year. I think that, I know there was one more thing I wanted to address with you. I wanted to make sure, as your charter officer tasked with advising you on legal agreements, that I do so. If you have any questions or concerns about anything I've said, I'm happy to address it.
We said that we could relieve them of their duties immediately, okay, if there's an issue.
Correct.
If we don't get them started, okay, then we gotta have if we vote tonight and say that we want, imagine that in there, and you say that you need to negotiate, if we vote them in tonight and you start negotiating, if we come to a roadblock with them that just, they need to be terminated, we just stop. We just take another direction, but we need to get started, now, getting this problems taken care of. Can you or can you not negotiate with him after we've already agreed with him?
So what I would advise that you do is what my advice to you was that you can approve my motion for you, or my recommended course of action for this body was to move to approve the manager and an attorney to negotiate and finalize an agreement for this body that would substantially comply with this agreement. That can be ratified at a special meeting, or your other option is you take the agreement as it reads. I give advice. That's the only thing I do. I don't make decisions in this community. I give advice, and I'm.
So if we take it as is, and then we decide that we don't like a certain part of it,
we can also execute an addenda to it.
Correct.
My sister is a physician, and I often tell her if anything needs to be changed in my career, we make amendments. People don't die on my table. I will tell you, regardless of what you do, something needs to be done in this community, and action is not.
Yes, exactly. That's my point. Yes, sir.
I've been in that chair, and I would never recommend that we move forward with an agreement you weren't fully happy with. I think we're happy to work with Mr. Cavalli and Mr. Mora to finalize some of the terms. And I think the specific words that were in there that were intelligent were substantially put forward. So we don't have a problem with that, and I would never want to put you in that position.
So,
I would like to make a motion to accept the contract, and if an addendum is needed, then we would do that, because it's, in my opinion, more important to start putting the town back on the right course.
Can we hear from the town? No?
Mr. Duncan, is that suitable with you?
Their own people said don't sign it until it's fixed. Why would we agree?
Either option you choose is going to be. Is this working?
No. Intermake the aisle.
Just project.
We need a new microphone. So either option would work. I'm trying my best. I'm an electrical engineer by degree, so I'm sitting here somewhere. Either option would work best To be frank, what, Mr. Murphy said is probably appropriate. If you make a motion that says something along the effects of the pricing and the terms seem appropriate to us, if there's some, minor verbiage that can be negotiated here over the next 2 days, that's fine. I would put a date certain on it, so it's not something.
Without council approval, correct?
You're approving in part, let the final negotiation happen. There's attorney on our side that can work with the attorney on your side. As long as we're in agreement in, right, scope, price, and then we're just working on some terms to make sure there's no underlying concerns with certain statutes. It makes me more comfortable as well. I think it would serve the community if everyone says, yes, we want our attorney to spend time, we're paying our attorney to go through it. It's fine. Okay, so I think it's appropriate. I would put a date on it, a time, so by Friday, by Monday, something I think is fine. If we're trying to start by next Wednesday, everyone's still employed here, I think that's okay. All right, so time is of the essence. Yes, we do need to get started, but sometimes it's doing things the right way is more important than just doing the right thing. So it's an opportunity to do the right thing and do it the right way, so a few days, I don't think it's gonna hurt.
Okay, so what is your motion?
So motion to, have,
Ma'am, I know how the procedure works, I appreciate it. Thank you. You can proceed, sorry, Councilmember.
Okay, motion to have, the scope of work, the four tasks, and our town manager and town clerk accepted, in the contract, and allow Mr. Mora there to, update it, and to have, you said we had to have another council meeting then?
No, I said you could ratify the agreement as finalized. What I was saying is, you could accept the agreement in its substantial form. You approve execution and finalization of the agreement, subject to limited negotiation revision that would substantially comport with while addressing the concerns, potentially addressing the concerns that I've raised. So I'm not talking about changing dollar amounts. I'm not talking about changing scope. I'm talking about addressing particular concerns. Lay words, fix some stuff while you agree that it's okay in its current form to be executed by the manager after that some stuff has been fixed.
Okay, is that your?
Is that
Yeah, so motion to accept the contract with Mr. Moore and our town manager, fixing the, verbiage, but as it stands fundamentally,
Get started.
Yeah, get started, by Monday.
Is that feasible, Mr. Dover?
Can you do it in that time?
I can do it in that time.
Okay.
I second motion. I second that motion.
Mayor, there's a motion and a second on the floor. When this item was introduced, you did take public comment. You have received some requests for that. There's no requirement that you do so. I'm just making you aware of that. Under section 286.0114 of the Florida statutes, the public must be given an opportunity to comment within reasonable proximity to an official act being taken during the decision-making process. So that's
We did say that already when we had all the comments, correct?
There was comment on this issue when it was initiated. If you wish to, you may, but you are not necessarily required to do so.
So we need a vote then?
There's a motion and a second on the floor, Mayor. If there's no other discussion from any party, then yes, a roll call vote is appropriate.
Councilmember Roberts?
No.
Councilmember Zamitis?
No.
Councilmember Noble?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cummings?
Yes.
And Mayor Howell?
Yes.
Imagine that.
Imagine, we're imagine
So I would, do you have anything else to say? Are you gonna go?
Well, we've got, department reports.
Right, but I was gonna make a motion to, table 3, 4, 5, and 6, since we have, identified our executive team. I would like to table those and let them look at that, table them at this time.
Can you, by name, just because there's been some shift, Member Noble?
So table the interim town manager candidate, table the administrative assistant resumes, table the accounting and finance specialist, and also table the legal services request for proposal. 2 of those were actually in the scope of work in the contract, 5 and 6 were. So I would like to table 3, 4, 5, and 6 at this time. Yes, that's what I said, yeah.
I second that.
There's a motion on the floor to table items 3 through 6 on the agenda, identified as the interview of the remaining interim manager candidate, the administrative assistant resumes, accounting and finance specialist resumes, and the legal services request for proposal. Is there any discussion among the body?
Now, I would just like to thank Bob Daniels, who's been on the phone with us and didn't even get a chance to go over any of this thing, but thank you for joining us, even though you weren't given that chance.
To be given the opportunity.
That's what I was gonna say to myself. Yes, thank you, Mr. Daniels, for taking the time to sit with us tonight, and, sorry we didn't have an opportunity to speak.
I'll see you when we get to the full-time manager's position.
Right, I was going to say, Mr. Duncan, do you know this gentleman?
Thank you.
Yes, okay. Well, then we'll get back to him when we get to that position. Is that not correct?
It's up to him, Mayor.
Okay. So, should we go on to the,
Mayor, you need to vote on it.
Oh.
There's a motion and a second, and no vote, and it's just a procedural
Okay.
matter which this body can handle.
Anna?
Councilmember Roberts?
The motion on the
No,
floor.
because I'm not voting for Imagine That either, so I'm not voting yes for this.
Councilmember Zemaitis?
No.
Councilmember Noble?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cummings?
Yes.
Mayor Howell?
Yes.
Your vote, you have tabled those action items on the agenda. The next item on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, is department reports.
Kansas City Police Department. Okay. Let me say one thing before you start again, Mike. I want to really congratulate you on the job that you're doing with our police department. It is running like a well-oiled machine. All your people have got a great attitude. Mr. Pete, I know he can agree with everything that I'm saying to you. You know, so thank you for doing your job.
Thank all the council members, Mayor, Pete, Randy, Anna, everybody for the support, team effort. During the month of May, the police department conducted several traffic details, 58th Street, 46th Avenue, and other business corridors throughout the town. The police department conducted 120 traffic stops, issuing 32 citations and 88 traffic warnings. And it was various violations, all the way from speeding to violation of traffic control device, stop signs, and even texting while driving violations, which is a huge safety concern out there. In May, we also participated in the fishing event, the Fishing with a Cop. One of our local residents that most of the town knows, Dick Leno, he did a great job with the Fishing with a Cop event. I know Manager Wally was there, and a lot of town staff, and a lot of the kids had a great time, and it was very well supported by residents and the children of our community, so it's a great thing. Upcoming events, we have our big July 4th event. I know Councilmember Zemaitis has some volunteers from Dixie that are going to help support that, as well as we have some other volunteers. And the police department is beginning to plan it with the town staff, and it's looking to be a very good event and a very big event, probably one of our largest ones. So everybody can kind of suggest everybody comes out for the July 4th event. We're gonna have bounce houses, different stuff for the kids out there, so it's gonna be a real fun event. Also during May, the police department continued patrolling with their mountain bikes and Polaris patrol vehicles as time permits. And we've gotten real good feedback from the residents. They really enjoy seeing the officers out there on bicycles and the Polaris vehicle. That's all I have for May, unless you guys have questions. All right, thank you.
Okay, fire department.
Good evening. Just to clarify, I spoke had an email with city manager. I was gonna bring EMS chief tonight and do a report, basically a kind of an overview report of overdoses, but knowing the importance of what we're doing and the amount of items you already had on the agenda, we're gonna go ahead and I'll do that next month. Reviewing our report. So the EMS system in May ran a record number of transports. It was 17,000 transports last month. Normal month is 15,000. Even in our busy months, whether February is usually in a little over 16,000. So it's just an exorbitant amount of EMS going on. We all know how the growth is going. I think we know everything's growing, but to the extent that it's growing, and no one's leaving. I talked about this last month. No one's leaving like they normally do. Everybody's staying. So you can see just the total responses in Kenneth City. We had 151 for the month of May, and we're already, so year to date, we're 100 responses just in Kenneth City over what we were last year in 2021. Medical calls, we're 139, and we're about 75 or so responses above that, which, if you look at it, it's more than 10% higher than what we normally have inside the city. So the system is just going crazy right now. Everybody's trying to figure out what's going on, why it's happening, and then what can we do about it. Several programs going on. I just spoke with the director of 911 today. We're talking about some the programs on dealing with homeless outreach, dealing with overdose. They have some grants that they've procured, and the possibility of us participating in those programs. So we'll see how that all moves forward. I'll have more on that next month. Inspections for the month of May, we completed 11 this month. False alarms, we had 3 false alarms. Plans reviews, we did 5 plans reviews this month. We installed 4 smoke detectors, and we did not have any public education down here. Again, we're kind of holding off. We've reduced our amount of public education with the uptick in COVID again. Actually, unfortunately, I had 3 people go out today from the department. Got found positive today. So COVID is still here. It's still prevalent in the county. We've had significant increases in the positivity rates and things like that over the past several months. Just encouraging everybody to be safe. Plus, flu is here. Everybody that thought that they had COVID wound up having the flu. Any questions on the EMS fire system?
I will tell you that I went to the firehouse a couple of weeks ago, and I'd never really met those guys. And I went in and I met 3 of them. One with a big old mustache. I think he was a lieutenant.
Yes, he's a new lieutenant. That is Jared Nestor. He's a new lieutenant.
What a bunch of nice guys. I was just, like I said, there's never really been a whole lot of communication between the fire department and us. It's like they're a separate entity. But they were really nice people, and, invited me to come back, ride with them, to show me what's going on, tell me their needs and all that kind of stuff. So after things start settling down here a little bit more, I'm going to expand my visiting or whatever, and getting to know the guys.
and y'all are always welcome to come over, all the weekends. I know, Councilman Noble, she has visited multiple times over there, had discussions on ride-alongs. You're all, anybody's welcome to come have a ride-along. The previous mayor, she came over for a ride-along, couldn't get off the truck, because it was so busy. So be careful and pick your timing. But yeah, she wound up staying a couple extra hours actually, because they could never get her back to the station. But
Well, thank you for your service.
absolutely, thank you very much.
I just want to thank you, Ms. Gould. I did a fire safety inspection at our town hall earlier this week. So I just want to thank you guys for doing that as well.
Absolutely, excellent.
Peter, are you going to handle the public works report?
Yeah, absolutely. As you can tell, Ken's not here. Ken's up in New York City right now, so thank you again. I keep forgetting this thing. But yeah, Ken's up in New York City, so his guys are continuing to go out and do the regular maintenance. Also, I was pretty proud of them. They know one of the things that I was excited about getting done, and I know you were as well, Ms. Noble, was to fix the drainage swale by Town Hall. So they went in there, they increased the capacity, which again will accept more water, stormwater in that area. There was also a lot of roots that were tripping hazards. It needs a little bit more work because after the rain, I saw a lot of it washed away, and it needs a little bit of topsoil in there. But that was done. Today I met with the folks from FEMA, from ISO, to do the CRS 5-year recertification visit, and very impressed with our relationship with those folks over at FEMA ISO. And I have a couple things to do going forward, but there's a very good chance that we're going to increase our rating, either from, currently we're at a level 8, that gives 10% off of your flood insurance rates. We're either going to be a 7 or possibly even a 6, so that'd be another 5 to 10% off of your, again, your flood insurance rates. And that's all I have for you, unless you have any questions.
Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. We continue to work through the transition based on the proceedings this evening. I will be in touch with Mr. Duncan most likely as soon as this meeting adjourns, if not first thing in the morning.